Well, hey, everybody. Good morning. My name is Greg. I'm the discipleship minister here at Current. I am really glad to be here, and I'm thrilled that y'all are here as well. And the question we're going to be wrestling with this morning is kind of a big one. Can you still trust God when the way He provides starts to change? Can you still trust God when the way He provides starts to change? When the way He's been taking care of you slowly or suddenly dries up? When your job ends, but the bills don't? When the doctor says things aren't going to be the same? When the people that you used to rely on are no longer there? When the future you pictured isn't the future that you're getting? Can you still trust God when the way He provides starts to change? If you've ever asked that question, Scripture tells a story that drops us right into that moment. Here's the world that this happens in. Moses has led the Israelites out of Egypt. They wander in the desert for 40 years. Joshua reclaims the promised land. And after that, we get the chaotic season of the judges. And then the kings: Saul, David, Solomon. And Solomon may be wise, but he's got a divided heart. And God tells him, because your heart is divided, I'm going to divide the kingdom. And that's exactly what happens. The 10 tribes of the north break away, and now they're called Israel. The 2 tribes in the south are called Judah. And our story this morning, it takes place up north in Israel during the reign of one of the worst kings who ever lived, King Ahab. And Ahab marries Jezebel. And yes, this is the Jezebel, the name that still means trouble. She brings in the worship of Baal. I can still remember my Old Testament professor. He's like, it's pronounced Baal, like he's a Klingon or something. For convenience, we're just going to say Baal. And Baal, as you may know, he's supposedly the rain god, the storm god, the dew god. So Israel starts trusting Baal for the things that it ought to be trusting God for. And that's when, out of nowhere, the prophet Elijah enters the chat. Let's take a look. In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Samaria over Israel 22 years. Ahab, son of Omri, did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. He not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, but he also married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. He set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal that he built in Samaria. Ahab also made an Asherah pole and did more to arouse the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, than did all the kings of Israel before him. The Bible's not subtle here. Ahab is evil on a historic level. But the turning point is Jezebel, because she pulls the whole nation into Baal worship. And Jezebel, she's the dominant partner. Let's just say she's the dominant partner in the marriage. Ahab may wear the crown, but it's Jezebel that's adjusting it on his head. You may have seen this at work. The person with the title isn't always the person with the most power, right? And so Jezebel rules Ahab, and so she rules Israel. I picture Jezebel kind of like a Disney villain. Cruella, Maleficent, Ursula. And if Baal is the supposed rain god, you can already feel the showdown coming. So, now we know the background, we know the villains. Ahab, the idol-worshiping king. Jezebel, his controlling, false god-worshiping wife. And it's on this stage that Elijah steps in. Verse 1. Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word. And we learn all that we need to know about Elijah just from his name. El, short for Elohim. I. It's from the Hebrew meaning my. And then Jah, short for Jehovah. And you put all that together, Elijah, the Lord is my God. And where's he from? Tishbe. It's a town so small that historians can't even find it. It's somewhere in the north. It's somewhere east of the Jordan. The point is this: Elijah's from the country. We're talking about one stoplight, and it just blinks. I'm not talking about Sealy. That's a big town. This is tiny. This is small, y'all. I mean, this place is so small. The marching band is just 4 guys and a kazoo. The halftime show, it's just your uncle grilling burgers. That's how small this place is. And Elijah, he goes from that small town straight into a showdown with the most powerful people in the land. And he says, no rain, not even dew, unless I say so. And everyone knows what no rain means. It means no crops. It means no livestock. It means that folks are going to die. And remember, Baal was the supposed rain god. So this isn't just a weather report. This isn't just a drought announcement. It's a direct challenge to who Israel trusts for its provision. And Elijah, he's charging hell with a squirt gun, calling out their blatant idolatry, their blatant sin. And so Elijah, he comes out of nowhere, confronts Ahab, confronts Jezebel, and then watch what God does next. Verse 2, then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith ravine, east of the Jordan. The very next thing Elijah was told to do was leave, which is so not what you'd expect. What we'd expect is after a confrontation like this, God would keep Elijah right up there in Ahab's face, kind of like Moses with Pharaoh. But God has a different plan. And put yourself in Elijah's shoes. He's come from nowhere. He's come from out of nowhere, suddenly speaking to the most powerful people in the land. And then the Lord sends him right back to obscurity. And if you were Elijah, wouldn't you just want to say to the Lord, leave? I just got here. I'm called to preach. I already spent my whole life in the backwoods. I'm not going back. Check out what God tells him. Verse 4, you will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there. This is amazing. Imagine Elijah's conversation as he's leaving town. So, hey, Elijah, where are you going? I'm out of here, headed for the hills. Well, where are you going to stay? I don't know, some place called Kerith. There's the brook there, I think. Well, what are you going to eat? Well, that's the best part. That's the best part. Actually, God told me that birds are going to bring me my food. Okay, there, buddy. Good luck with that. But here's what God's doing. He is protecting Elijah. He's providing for Elijah, and he's preparing Elijah. The ravens aren't random. They're part of God's plan. Verse 5. So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan and stayed there. This is the beautiful part. Elijah does what I probably wouldn't have. He just obeys. No argument, no complaint, no hesitation. He just goes. And don't miss this. The name Kerith literally means to cut down. It's a place of reduction, a place where God strips away all the things you thought you needed so you can learn that you only need him. So Elijah, he leaves the spotlight and walks straight back into obscurity. And if we're honest, that's hard. It's hard to step back after you've stepped forward. It's hard to take a smaller role after you've had a bigger one. I've been there. Years ago, I was leading a church and I had the lead pastor role. And God moved me into a season that felt like the desert. In fact, he sent our family to a church in the literal desert of Las Vegas. And I wasn't calling the shots anymore. At the time, it didn't make sense, but looking back, I can see it very clearly. God wasn't sidelining me. He was shaping me. He was teaching me about grace. He was teaching me how to love people, about what really matters, stuff I couldn't learn in seminary. I wouldn't trade that season now for anything. And neither would Elijah. Verse 6. And the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. I don't know. I have this picture in my mind. It's like one of those old Disney movies. I don't know, Cinderella, where she has the birds coming in, helping and talking to her every morning. It's just like that. The birds bring him 2 meals a day, every day, for years. It's a dry and dusty land at any time, but don't forget, God has pronounced through Elijah this huge drought on the land. And that cool, refreshing stream, it's a constant reminder of God's moment-by-moment provision. God led Elijah there, and now God is sustaining Elijah there. And don't you know that those two things always go together? If it's really God leading you, if it's really God, then he's going to provide. You may have heard it. When it's God's vision, it will be God's provision every time. But here's the truth. We don't live at the brook forever. And everything feels steady until it doesn't. Verse 7. Sometime later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. You ever been in a season where something that once felt steady just dried up? At one time, things were secure. The job was solid. The future felt clear. And then something changed. The job ended. The diagnosis came. The relationship broke. And just like that, the brook dries up. Elijah is standing in the wilderness now with no water. And the question hanging in the air is the same one that we ask. Has God forgotten me? Because when provision changes, it's so very easy to assume that God has changed too. But here's the truth. God has not abandoned Elijah. Elijah's standing in the very drought that he had prayed for. The dried up brook isn't proof that God's left. It's proof that God's plan is still moving. It's what every one of us faces, that moment where we decide one thing or the other, whether we're going to run toward him or whether we're going to run away. Because seasons like Cherith, they have a purpose in your life. They strip away our illusions. They loosen our grip on our control. Because when the brook dries up, God still speaks. And that's what reveals who we've been trusting in all along. Verse 8. Then the word of the Lord came to him, go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. I have directed a widow there to supply you with food. So Elijah leaves Cherith, the place where God stripped it all away, the place that cut him down to size and taught him to trust. And now God sends him to Zarephath. And Zarephath, that place, the name literally means refining. It's a crucible, a place of intense heat where the impurities rise to the surface. So don't miss the movement. God cut him down at Cherith, and now he's going to refine him at Zarephath. And even the journey, it's not going to be easy. Elijah's now a wanted man. There's basically a bounty on his head. Ahab and Jezebel have spies in the land. They're looking for him everywhere. I mean, you got Dog, the bounty hunter. You got Boba Fett. You got everybody. You got everybody looking for this dude. And Elijah, he's got to cross a drought-stricken land with every cactus that he passes has a poster on it that says, wanted, dead or alive. When he finally arrives, God doesn't send him to a king. He doesn't send him to a wealthy supporter. He sends him to a widow. Verse 10, so he went to Zarephath. When he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink? And as she was going to get it, he called, and bring me, please, a piece of bread. So Elijah makes it. He's on the lam. He's on the run for 100 miles in a drought. And he arrives and he's like, hey, kind of thirsty. It's one of those all-time understatements of the Bible. It reminds me of Jesus in Matthew 4, and the Bible is so matter-of-fact about this, and Jesus has been fasting for 40 days, and it's like after that, he was hungry. You don't say. And Elijah, he gets bolder, and he's like, hey, not only water, hey, can you bring me some bread too? Like this lady is his waitress at the Olive Garden, right? It feels like he's pushing it. Like this lady, she's there to serve him. But Elijah's not being rude. He's following God. Verse 12, as surely as the Lord your God lives, she replied, I don't have any bread. Only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks. Actually, I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son that we may eat it and die. In other words, you don't understand, Mr. Man. I got nothing. You're asking me for this? Welcome to Zarephath, Elijah. Welcome to the crucible. Verse 13, Elijah says to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first, make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me. And then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." And I want you to know, this isn't symbolic language. This isn't the community gathering together and working together behind the scenes. And when she's out of the house, they sneak in and put a little more of this in, put a little more of that in. It's not a metaphor. It's a miracle. Her oil will replenish. Her flour will refill every day, just enough. Verse 15, she went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family, for the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. She went and she did. I like that. I think there's something to that. Sometimes I think that's what faith looks like. Not understanding all of it, not seeing miles and miles ahead, just trusting. Trusting enough to take the next step. That's what faith looks like. Just like God promised, there was food every day. Not abundance, not surplus, just enough. Every morning she checks the jar. Enough. Every evening, still enough. And it reminds us of something simple. When God says he'll provide, he does. But there's one more scene that we need to see here. Verse 17. Sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. She said to Elijah, "What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" And just like that, after all the provision, after all the daily miracles, tragedy hits. Her son gets sick and he dies. The Bible doesn't tell us what the illness was, only that it took him. And in her grief, she looks for someone, anyone, to blame. She turns to Elijah, probably the nearest person, and says, "Did you come here to remind me of my sin?" And honestly, grief does that, doesn't it? When pain is overwhelming, we reach for answers, even if those answers don't really make any sense. That's what we do. This is the worst loss that she's ever known. And in that moment, she lashes out. Verse 19, "Give me your son," Elijah replied. He took him from her arms and carried him to the upper room where he was staying and laid him on the bed. And the widow, I can just picture this scene. The widow, she's standing there, her son in her arms, and tears are streaming down her face. It's like a scene from a movie. And Elijah just holds out his arms and he says, "Give him to me." You know what really impresses me about Elijah during this whole scene? It's his silence. Somehow he knows there's nothing he's going to say that will take her pain away. And he doesn't rebuke her. He doesn't tell her that she should not be blaming him. He's the last person she ought to be blaming. No. Elijah's in a tough spot, but he doesn't fall apart. He doesn't lose his cool. He doesn't get mad about getting blamed for something that really isn't his fault. No, he's gentle. And he's determined in the face of unfair accusations, give me the boy. Let me ask you this. What do you do when you're unfairly criticized? It happens to all of us. When someone puts something on you that isn't yours to carry, what do? Elijah's a model of manhood here. He stands tall. He doesn't panic. Why should he? God's come through before, and he will again. Verse 20, then he cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I'm staying with by causing her son to die? Then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times and cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him. The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah picked up the child and carried him down from the room into the house. He gave him to his mother and said, look, your son is alive. Then the woman said to Elijah, now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth. This is the first recorded resurrection in the entire Bible. Last Sunday, Easter Sunday, we call it Resurrection Sunday. We celebrated the most important resurrection. And this story in 1 Kings, it's not just about a boy coming back to life. It's a preview. Because sometimes God's provision, it's not just bread, it's life. And one day, God would provide life not through a prophet, but through his son. It reminds us that the God who provides is also the God who can bring life even out of something that feels finished. And when you step back and look at Elijah's story, you start to notice something. God keeps changing the way that he provides. A brook, some birds, the miracle of the replenishing flour and oil, a miracle of a resurrection. Everything around Elijah keeps changing, but God never does. And that's the point. And it leads us straight back to the question that we were grappling with at the beginning. Can you still trust God when the way he provides starts to change? Answer, yes. When provision changes, God hasn't, and that's why you can trust him. Look at somewhere in your life, there's a place where the brook has dried up. Something changed, something ended, something looks different than you ever thought it would. And the decision in front of you, it isn't whether you like it. It's whether you're going to trust God through it. Because trust isn't proven when everything is flowing and everything is good. Trust is proven when it isn't. So maybe for you, the response today, right there in your seat, just quietly, right where you are, is to say, God, I don't understand this season, but I trust you in it. I trust that you're still working. I trust that you're still present. I trust that you're still good. Not because everything makes sense, but because he's been proven faithful. Provision may change. Circumstances are going to shift. Plans may look different than what you imagined. But the God who met Elijah at the brook, the God who met Elijah through the widow, the God who met Elijah in the miracle, is the same God who sees you today. And you can trust him. And for some of you, the step of trust today isn't about a season. It's really about your entire life. You haven't trusted yet in Jesus Christ. You haven't yet trusted him to be your Lord and Savior. Sure, you're in church. Maybe you grew up in a Christian family. Maybe you've just thought to yourself, well, I've kind of always been here. It's time. Jesus is at the door. He's knocking. He's been proven faithful. Today is your day to trust him with your life. You can make that decision this morning. I'm going to be in the back. Our prayer partners are going to be in the back. And as we sing this next song, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come see us in the back. And here's the only thing we're going to do. We're going to point you straight to Jesus. And he is going to transform your life. You can make that decision. Now, as the rest of us all stand and we worship.